Well, good evening, everyone. This is Darren Steindl. I'm the Director of Field Service for the Northern Lights Council, and we're going to be starting our program planning webinar. Just wanted to remind everybody that you are muted. So if you do have a question, there should be on your toolbar a question box where you can type in your question. If that doesn't seem to work for you, you can also do it in the chat, and I'll kind of try and keep my eyes out looking for those and answer those as we go along. I also do want to point out that there is a handout that is available. Contains some links to our council website and some other sources that will help you with program planning materials. So we're going to get started here, and I do apologize that I am fighting a little bit of a cold tonight. I will try and mute myself if I have to sneeze or cough, but the one good thing about a webinar is I don't think you can catch it from me over the internet, so you're safe at home. So what we're going to do is tonight we're talk about program planning, getting ready. This time of the year, a lot of the Cub Scout programs are starting to kind of wind down. Looking forward to the summer programs, but that is a great time to actually begin the program planning process for the next school year, if you will. And of course, Boy Scout troops are active throughout the year. But also, people have a little bit more free time in the summertime, so it's a good time to do program planning. We're going to talk about the ideal year of scouting, talk about some of the resources that's available, how you're going to pay for all the program stuff that you're going to do, and how you can grow your unit. So it all kind of rolls together this time of the year, and it's a good time. And I appreciate you taking some time in your day to sit in on this webinar. So. Why do we want to do program planning? I think, the old saying is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, really is true in scouting. If we do a good job on program planning, we're going to have much better activities, lots more participation. New members that are coming in to join your unit are going to see that, hey, this is a well-organized program and something that we definitely want to spend time with. And when things are running good, you tend to retain your members for longer. And of course, scouting has the most impact the longer we have the kids involved in our scouting programs. And being organized kind of helps you maintain your sanity. I know a lot of times we get so busy that it just seems crazy. And if you've already had a plan set in place, at least it's you can have a little comfort in that. Now, of course, there are going to be some changes and you're going to have to deviate from the plan every once in a while, but at least it's a good roadmap for you to use. And, if we're having better activities and more participation, it's going to be a lot more fun for the youth. So, that's why we want to take the time to do this. I guess this work on the front end is going to save you a lot of time, hassle, and headaches when it actually comes time to do meetings and do activities. One of the things that I do want to point out is the Journey to Excellence. And for those of you that have been involved in scouting for a while, maybe are pretty familiar with this, but if you're newer, you may not. Journey to Excellence is basically an award that units can earn for different categories. And there are 3 different levels that a pack or a troop can attain, bronze, silver, or gold. And it's really about improvement over the previous year. There, as you look at the actual detailed requirements, it'll say things like have an improvement of 2% over last year. Have more kids attend camp or whatever it is. And so any unit can by looking at the Journey to Excellence requirements, can plan on making some changes to their program and actually attain these awards. And it is a good tool for planning because if that's one of your resources that is there, it'll help you build your calendar and make sure that those things are hit. So the Journey to Excellence program really focuses on 4 areas: planning and budgeting, membership, program, and volunteer leadership. And so within each of those 4 categories, there may be a couple different criteria that you would look at. I'm just going to show you a sample, just a portion of what the Cub Scout Pack Journey to Excellence scorecard looks like. Now, I know you probably can't read this very well on the screen, But this is talking the planning and budgeting one. To get to the bronze level, you just have to have an annual program plan and a budget approved by the PAC committee. Okay, that's pretty easy to do to get at bronze level, and you get 50 points for that. For the silver level, you attain the bronze level plus PAC committee meets at least 6 times during the year to review the program plans and finances. And then for gold, um, conducts a planning meeting involving den leaders for the following year. Um, so you can see that these are not that hard to attain, but if you're not looking at it, oftentimes you'll just kind of skip over it and it doesn't get done. So in the handout, I've got links to these actual scorecards that you can download them and print them yourselves, and you can look at what the details are in each of those. This is something that if you have a unit commissioner that comes by your unit and visits, they're looking to see, are you guys doing some of these things on here? They may offer some ideas for you on how to implement those into your program. The one thing I would tell you is unit commissioners are not there to spy on you. They are there to help. They're volunteers that just love scouting and want to make sure that all the kids have the best scouting program they can have. And so their job is just to stop by, visit, see how you're doing, and if they do see anything that they might be able to help with, they'll offer their assistance. So, getting ready to start our program planning, there are some tools that you're going to want to gather together. And one of those is our council program planning guide that you can get from your district executive if you were not able to attend the roundtable in April. They have copies available. We have enough, couple for every single unit. And that guidebook has a lot of material in it that will be very helpful for you, and a lot of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. But the key thing is it's got the council and district dates for events and meetings and stuff in there. Of course, you're going to want to get the Journey to Excellence scorecard for your particular program. You'll want to get calendars from your school district and from your church. A lot of times, we plan a great event and nobody shows up and we wonder what happened. Well, we scheduled it on the night of the high school football game with the big rivalry across town. So we need to keep those things in mind so that we're not creating conflicts for our families. Another thing, if you have used the parent information surveys, I would have those available too, because as you're planning out your program, you can look at those sheets to see which parents actually have skill sets that might be useful to help you with a particular part of your program. And I've found that if you ask people face to face, in person, to help out with something that they're already good at, you're much more likely to have them say, yes, I can help with that, than if you try and stand in front of a group and say, hey, we need help with this, raise your hand. And then some other leader guidebooks and handbooks and stuff. Anything that will give you some ideas will be helpful when you get into the program planning stage. So this is what the council program planning guide looks like. The cover, it is for the 2018-2019 calendar, so it starts in May and it runs all the way through December of 2019. And our council is very dedicated to committing to dates. We don't change dates. We may end up having to change a location or something because of scheduling conflicts, but we've made it a point to not change dates because it's really hard to expect our volunteers, unit leaders, to commit to something and then we change the date. So the dates in there you can trust are going to be accurate. And this book, if you want some extra copies or you want to share it with some other leaders, is available to download on the council website on the program planning page. And as I mentioned, for each month, there are dates for each of the districts and for the council, so you'll need to know which district you are. And it has, roundtable meetings are listed on there, training events, special events. One of the council ones I know that's coming up this summer is the Fargo Red Hawks Scout Night with the Red Hawks game. that the kids can go to the baseball game, and then they can actually camp out on the ball field after the game. So those dates are in here. Um, some things like the Fargo Force, we have to wait until we know what their schedule is, so they're not in the calendar. But for the most part, anything that we have available, it is printed in there. Now, this calendar is also designed to kind of hang on the wall. So if you use it for your calendar template, you could put your dates in there and make copies of that, and parents can put it on the refrigerator or whatever will help them remember what meetings are coming up. So um, it's designed to be useful for you. Hopefully, you can put it to good use. As I had mentioned, some of the leader books for Cub Scouts, they have the leader books, the individual boys books. For Boy Scouts, we've got the Scoutmaster Handbook, the program features, which there are 3 different versions. And those, if you've never used those, they actually, the kids can pick a subject like on this picture that cycling. So it lays out meetings to do for your troop meetings, and you don't really have to think about all the stuff you have to plan. It's got a template in there for you. So utilize the resources that are available when it comes to program planning. So a couple of the websites that you will find a lot of good information at is the Northern Lights Council website, which is nlcbsa.org, and then the scouting.org website. And that website has been totally redesigned within the last, I guess 3 or 4 months. It's much easier to find information on there. The search feature will now take you directly to pages instead of giving you a whole list of PDFs to look at and stuff. You can also look at other pack and troop websites to see kind of what they've been planning. Other things, I guess, to kind of keep in mind is, what are some of the council sponsored fundraisers? Our popcorn sale and our Jack Link's beef jerky, beef stick sale is going on right now. Those are designed to help your unit raise money for your program, and also to help the boys help pay their way through scouting, to go to camp, to help pay for some things in your pack or troop. It does teach them a lot of skills that will come in handy later on in life about salesmanship and speaking in public and those types of things. There is a budget sheet that's on our council website too that's fillable, and so you can plug in the numbers, how many kids you have in your unit, and the different activities that you're going to do, and it does a lot of calculations for you, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then some other resources. Your chartered organization, your unit commissioners, and the council staff are all there to help you with anything that you need if you have any questions. So, what are the steps to success? First, you want to do a program planning meeting, and getting the kids and the parents involved in your planning process is going to probably be an eye opener for you, but it's also a great way to build some ownership in the program, and I'll show you a little bit later on kind of how that works. But get the kids together and have some flip charts or some way to write down ideas, and you're just going to do a big brainstorming session. Kids, what would you love to do in scouting next year? And you just write everything on that board that pops into their head, even if it may sound outrageous and impossible to do. Like, hey, we want to go on a field trip to the moon. Okay, well, write it up there. You'll get some chuckles, but it's okay. Do the brainstorming. Write down everything that they have. Okay, then you're going to take all of those ideas to your unit committee meeting, and you can kind of analyze. What are the things that just as against BSA policy that we can't do. We can't do skydiving. Okay, so we've got to cross that one off. Look at things that just maybe aren't feasible to do. But a lot of times, if it does seem, almost impossible to do, if you set your sights on it, everything is possible. It just may take you a while to get there. So, I know about troops that have, during this process, they said, the scouts said, hey, you know what? We would really love to go hiking in Alaska. Okay, well, the leaders at first thought, oh, that's way too expensive. But when they actually started looking at it and said, well, we probably could do that. So have the unit committee kind of whittle it down on the things that are unsafe against policy or whatnot, and then have a follow-up meeting. And now you've got the things that are possible, and then let the parents and the boys vote on these things. Now, the cool thing about it is when they vote on it, they're basically saying, yes, we really believe that we want to do this. And if a parent, is voting on something, I'd keep track of who's voting, because that's the person that I'm going to go to say, hey, you know what? We decided that we're going to do this fishing derby, and I noticed that you voted for it. Do you have some skills in fishing? And maybe if they did that survey form, you're going to look at it and say, oh yeah, they have a boat, they do fishing or whatever, and then you can ask them personally to help out with that event. So this is not only just coming up with ideas on programs to do, but ideas on who you're going to get to ask to help do those things. So you're going to tally up the results. However you want to tally that is up to you. But you're going to basically whittle it down to the things that people have voted on and said, yes, we really want to do this. Then your next step then is going to assign, what months are we going to do these activities in? Of course, there's some activities that you can do any time of the year, and some things only when it's cold out or only when it's warm out. So this way you're picking, okay, we're going to go to the zoo. That might be a little bit better activity to do when it's warmer out than in the middle of January. So now you're starting to build your calendar. Okay, here's our big activity. This is our theme that we're going to do for this particular month. And that's when you can start creating your calendar that shows when your den meetings are going to be held, when your pack meetings are going to be held, and what your big events are going to be. Okay. And then, of course, looking at the council calendar, finding out, okay, when does the popcorn sale start? When do we have to have orders in? You can put all of this stuff into your calendar. And of course, when it comes to popcorn sales, if the council says, hey, we need to have the unit's popcorn order by the 15th of whatever day, month, you might want to put in your calendar to the families that, hey, we need your order by the 10th. Okay, so it does give your popcorn kernel 4 or 5 days to track down those stragglers, because we all know not everybody is punctual on meeting deadlines. So having a little bit of fluff time in there to follow up is usually very helpful for you as a unit to meet the deadline. The other thing too is when you actually have finished your calendar, we would like to have you send a copy of that to the district executive. It's very helpful for them so that they know when your pack meetings are, so that they can kind of build their calendar and they can stop by and visit you. It's much easier if they have, the schedule on everybody than to try and call every single unit and find out this information the other way. When you think of a district executive that's serving in a district that maybe has 50 units, that's 50 phone calls that they have to make just to find out when your pack and troop meetings are. It'd be very helpful if you just sent that to them. They'd be very grateful. So after you've kind of got your date set and you've picked out what your activities are going to be and what months they're going to be, then we kind of have to figure out, okay, how are we going to pay for this? Okay, and so Trails End has come up with this idea of the ideal year of scouting, which basically, you've asked the families and the youth, what is it that they want to do, and now they've voted on it, and basically, you're picking a lot of the activities that all of the kids want to do. So that's the ideal year of scouting, and so we have to pay for it, and because scouting is all about this program. We want to see kids out doing the outdoor activities and the fun stuff. But we do have to pay for it. Now, you can do it many different ways on how to pay for this. Some packs will just say, hey, parents, it's going to cost X amount of dollars for your child to be involved in our Cub Scout program this year. Write us a check. Okay. Well, some families may be able to do that, but there's a lot of families that just can't do that. So we're going to want to, offer some ways for them to raise money through these fundraising sales. And you're also going to have to figure out how much is it really going to cost. Okay. Because if you haven't done a budget, you really honestly can't tell them it's going to cost $250 to be involved in our pack for the year. Um, but when you go through the budget process, you can be very accurate on exactly what it costs to do your program. And we have some packs that do very, very well in the popcorn sale. And believe it or not, some of them actually have a tough time figuring out how to spend all the money that they've earned. But usually that's a pretty fun problem to have. But working on this budget, so first of all, we want to have that calendar built by the end of May. Just so you've got your roadmap there in place. And then during the months of June and July, then you can work on the budget. And like I said, this budget that's on the screen is actually an Excel format worksheet that you can download from our council website. Basically, it has monthly grids on there. What is it going to cost to put on a pack meeting, for refreshments or whatever it may be. How many advancements do you expect that the kids are going to earn, and how much would they cost? Your big event for the month, is there going to be an extra charge to do those things? And you plug all those things in. You tell how many kids you expect to have in your unit, and it'll calculate everything out, and it'll tell you, okay, it's going to cost, $199 per youth to be in our program. Okay, so that can also be a goal then for when it comes time to do popcorn sales. That to raise the $199, I have to sell X amount of popcorn to cover that cost, and then there's no money that comes out of my parents' pockets to pay for scouting. Okay, and a lot of parents love that, because I remember when my kids were going to school, they'd be coming home from school saying, "Hey, we got to sell cookie dough," and I'd ask, "Well, why? What's it for?" "Well, we don't know. We just were told we had to sell cookie dough." "Well, how much you have to sell?" "Well, I don't know. We just sell as much as you can." Well, it doesn't really excite a parent to go out and peddle cookie dough if you don't really know what it's for or how much is really expected. But if you've done a budget like this and you've explained this to the parents, that here's all the things that we're going to get to do during the year, this is how much it's going to cost, and this is how much popcorn your son has to sell. Um, then you've got a reason for it, and you have a goal, and then the parents can kind of get a little bit more excited about it. So, sharing your calendar and your budget is very important. And when we have new families that are coming in to join in August and September, that's one of the handouts that they should get, is a copy of your calendar. And you maybe give them a copy of your budget, but at least talk to them about it, because number one, it's going to highlight all the fun things that they're going to be doing during the year, and then you can explain to them the cost. And when you look at the cost of scouting, even when you start adding in, uniforms and books and all that kind of stuff, when you compare that to other types of programs, whether it's some other kind of youth organization or a sporting team, scouting is very economical when you consider that it's a year-round program. I grew up playing hockey, and hockey equipment and hockey camps and traveling to the different hockey games and stuff. My parents shelled out a lot of money so that I could play hockey. Now, it was a great experience, and I learned a lot. But scouting does everything that sports does plus more. And so when you consider the impact that you can have on a child by participating in this program, it really is. We're getting a big bang for the bucks that we're putting into this. And when you're sharing all this information, like I said, it just gets the parents more motivated and more bought into what they're doing. So those are, that's kind of the program planning steps that I would say that every unit would do. You will find that units that have been around for years and years and years and are growing all the time, they always have a budget, they always have a calendar, and they share that with the parents. A lot of Boy Scout troops, that's one of the orientation things that they do when the new family comes in, is they sit down with all the parents and they go through this in detail. Sometimes our Cub Scout packs don't do that quite as much. We do our sign up nights, and we just tell them, here's when the den meetings are and here's when the pack meetings are. And, now we need to collect, your application and your registration fees, and we send them out the door. So when we get into the fall recruiting campaign, for a number of years now, we've been talking to PACs about, doing a sign up night. You get all that stuff taken care of, collecting the applications and their registration and stuff. But then do a parent orientation meeting that's followed, like a week later, where you can go into a lot more detail on this stuff to show them exactly what you're going to do. Now, the other thing when we're planning is, how is your unit going to continue to grow? Because if you're not growing, okay, then you're probably declining in membership, and if it continues to decline, at some point in time, your unit may not function. So you're always having to think, how are we going to grow our unit? How are we going to get new families involved and get them into scouting? Because Cub Scouts hopefully are going to move on into Boy Scouts, and we want new kids coming in to replace those kids that have moved on into Boy Scouts. So there's a couple things that I was going to talk about as far as Cub Scouts. We have family scouting, which is a resolution that was made by the National Boy Scouts of America back in August, I guess last year, that they said that we're going to open up the Cub Scouting programs to allow girls to participate. And so that starts this fall of 2018. We've had a few early adopters that have tried this in our council. Not a lot. There's actually only 3 packs that have done it. But there has been an interest. We've had a lot of interest from parents that have both boys and girls, and they said, "Boy, we'd love to have our girls be able to participate with the boys too." So that's why this is coming out. But the one thing that I do want to mention about family scouting is it is not required, and it's an optional program, and it does have to be approved by your chartered organization. So the district executives can work with the PAC committee to have the conversation with the charter organization to see, are they interested in offering that or are they not? And then the PAC committee also can make that decision as well. And if they do decide that, yes, we want to allow girls to participate, then we can start getting ready for them joining this fall. The other new program is Lions, and that is a program for kindergartners. So in years past, Cub Scouts didn't start until they were in the 1st grade, and that's the Tiger program. And so the National Council has been piloting this for a number of years, and our council did a pilot with quite a few units this last year, and it's been very successful. So the Lion program will be available this fall for kindergartners to join. The unique thing about the Lion program is that it uses shared leadership, and so you will need to have a Lion Den leader, but the shared leadership means that the parents of all the Lions also are expected to participate in planning a meeting and helping conduct the meeting. And the Lion program is really designed to be an orientation to Cub Scouts, give them a taste of what Cub Scouts is like. From the pilot stage to the full implementation program, there have been some changes. In the pilot program, they were only allowed to participate in a few PAC meetings, and it was kind of limited on what they were doing. But the families were saying, hey, we want a little bit more than this. So when the full implementation takes effect this fall, it's going to be a more robust program. They can participate in as many PAC meetings as they want to. They can do the Pinewood Derby. And the advancement program from them was upgraded a little bit. It went from using stickers for recognition to actually earning belt loops. So if you're not familiar with the Lion program, you can go into our program planning guidebook to see a little bit more details about that. And also on that handout, I have a link to the Lion page on the national website that has all the details on there. about implementing the Lions into your Cub Scout program this fall. Of course, we always boys can join scouting at any time. Once we have the girls in there, they can also join anytime after this fall. But we do have a couple of focus time periods in the spring and in the fall where the district executives will help you go into the schools, talk to the kids, pass out flyers, get them excited about scouting, and then they can come to a sign up night that your pack conducts. So what we talk about in the spring is, if your pack has a lot of activities planned for the summertime, you're going to go to day camp or maybe resident camp, um, earning the summertime pack award, which requires 3 activities during June, July, and August. So most of our day camps are held in June, so that could be one of the events. July, maybe doing a family picnic or something. And then if you're in the Fargo Moorhead area or close, within easy driving distance, you could do the Scout Night with the Red Hawks in August, and that's your 3 activities. If you have that kind of stuff planned for the summertime, then we'd say yes, go ahead and recruit some kids in the spring and let them go to day camp right away and do some of those fun adventures. But if you don't have anything planned, then we'd probably tell you, well, just wait until the fall, because we don't want the kids to sign up and be all excited about going out and shooting bows and arrows and BB guns and stuff, and then find out that the pack isn't going to go. And then, of course, the fall recruiting is our big time where we try and have every pack doing recruiting. Now, for Boy Scouts, we also can help with spring and fall recruiting as well. We've got flyers that we can do at middle schools. And all you got to do is have a date put on there for your next troop meeting, and just make sure that there's somebody there to welcome them and talk to the parents while the kids are kind of checking out the activities that your troop members are doing. Now, they are also going to be offering family scouting for older girls, but that doesn't start until February, March of 2019. And the one thing that I forgot to mention about family scouting for Cub Scouts is there's kind of 3 different ways that you can have girls involved. One is you can have girls that are participating in their own den. So you'd have a boy wolf den and you'd have a girl wolf den. Or you could also have a mixed group of girls in a den too. So if you don't have enough girls to have separate dens for each grade, you could have 4 or 5 girls that are at different age levels in a den by themselves, working on their different programs. And then the other option too is you can have just a totally separate pack just for the girls. For the boys, the Boy Scout and the older girl program, those are going to be separate troops, and but they do have some things in place where they can share troop committees, so that the girl troop doesn't have to have a whole set of committee members separate for them, and they can also share unit numbers, having the same chartered organization, having the same unit number. And so more information about the older girl program will be coming out later this year in preparation for starting this program in February, March of 2019. Webelos to Scout transition is we're kind of in the real busy time of the year right now. So all of the Webelos that are in 5th grade should be able to be transitioning into Boy Scouts. Usually that kind of starts in February, but with some of the changes in some of the requirements, it may be taking a little bit longer. But right now we have about 400 and some odd boys that are basically eligible to join a Boy Scout troop sometime this spring. So the district executives have this list. They're sharing it with the Scoutmasters, and they should be sharing it also with the Webelos leaders, where we're just trying to find out, where are the boys going? Are they going to continue on into Boy Scouts? If they are, what troop they're going to. We want to make sure that we can get through this process and get everybody registered in the right spot before they start going to one of the summer camps. And just as an example, last year, after the summer camp programs got done, we were checking, the attendance rosters just to make sure all the kids were registered. And we also check advancement reports and stuff. And in last year, we tracked down like 300 kids that had actually joined a troop or, joined Cub Scouts or whatever, but actually hadn't completed the registration steps. So we had to track that down. Our goal is to get the kids registered correctly before they go to summer camp, so that when they do earn merit badges, and that advancement report comes in, we can accurately record that for them and give them credit. If they're not registered correctly, then we can't input that information into their record. So it saves a lot of follow up on the paperwork and stuff. And so that list is available. If you have not received the list, certainly you can send me an email and I can send that list out to you. My email will be at the end of the slideshow here. So the other part about, excuse me. See, I coughed and I jumped too far ahead. Growing your unit also means recruiting more volunteers, and I hear from volunteers all the time that say, it's just really hard to get people to volunteer. And I've been involved in scouting for a long time, and when I first started, there was kind of a mentality that people had that, if we're going to be a part of this type of an organization, we're going to volunteer. But that's kind of changed over time, and people are more reluctant to do that. So you have to use a little bit different tactics. So I guess when my mom brought me to a Cub Scout meeting and they said, "Hey, we need den leaders," she said, "Okay, I'll do it since my son's going to be involved," and that's how they got their den leaders. But nowadays, it's very rare that you're going to have somebody that's going to raise their hand in a meeting. And also too, sometimes they're not going to be the best person that's going to be the den leader. And we hear, every fall, somebody volunteers to be a den leader, and then all of a sudden they do a couple meetings and they quit meeting, and the whole den falls apart, and it's just a bad scenario for the kids because they're getting disappointed. So a lot of times the district executives, the commissioners will go in and help try and recruit a new den leader and get the den back on track. But if we can find the right people to fill those positions in the first place, it causes a lot less stress. And so utilizing the parent information form, we found is very, very helpful. And like I said, after this gets done, please go on there and download one of the appropriate forms for your unit. For Cub Scouts, the front of the page basically asks some questions about, what do you do for a living? Do you own, what kind of vehicles do you own? What are your hobbies? Anything like that. Why would you ask people what kind of a car do they own? Okay, well, if you're going to go on a trip someplace, you want to know, can they help drive? And, could they seat 5 people in their car, 6 people, or whatever? And finding out what they do for a living obviously will tell you a little bit about what kind of knowledge they have about different subjects, and that's helpful. But on the back side of the form, it lists all the different activities that the kids will be doing in Cub Scouts, starting in Tigers, going through Wolves, Bears, and Webelos. And so it just has a bunch of topics like, do you know anything about nature? Do you know anything about woodworking? Just check mark the things that you have some knowledge about. And then when it comes time to, you're going to do the Pinewood Derby race, look through those surveys and see who has woodworking tools, who knows how to do that kind of stuff, and then go and personally ask them, hey, I noticed that you're really good at woodworking. Would you help us with the Pinewood Derby? And most of the time they're going to say, yeah, I can do that, because they're comfortable with what is required to happen. Okay, we're going to work with the kids on sawing some derby cars and putting that stuff together. Whereas another parent may have no skills in woodworking at all, and if you go and ask them to help, they're going to say no. And usually they're going to say, no, I'm too busy. But that's usually just an excuse. What I've found is you have to get to that comfort level that person has. And, so for me, if you came and asked me, We're looking for a golf merit badge counselor. Could you do that? Well, yeah, I play golf. I could do that. But to ask me to help out on the decorations committee for the blue and gold banquet, I'd say, I'm too busy. Sorry, because decorating is not my thing. So that's where that parent information sheet will really come in handy. There's also a version for Boy Scout troops that's very similar, except on the backside it lists all the different merit badges out there to help you find merit badge counselors or subject experts for doing some of your meetings. So I can't stress enough the part about asking personally for somebody to do something. And I don't know if you've ever heard the Oreo cookie story, but I'll tell that to you right now because I found it it's kind of hilarious, but it's also a very good test. So and I read this on Brian on Scouting, and I'm not exactly sure if the den leader actually really did this or not, or if it was just an allegorical story. But basically, the way it goes is a den leader had their first meeting, and at the end of the meeting, they said, the den leader said, I forgot to bring snacks tonight. Kids need to have some snacks. So, I'm going to ask for your help. Can everybody bring some Oreo cookies to the next meeting so the kids have something to eat? Okay, so week went by. Next den meeting comes up. First, Dad and Cub Scout comes walking in the door, and they didn't bring anything along. Totally forgot about it. Okay, next group of parents and kids come in through the door, and they have just one of those little tiny packages of Oreo cookies that you get at a gas station. And the reason they brought that is on the way to the meeting, the Cub Scout said, "Hey, Dad, weren't we supposed to bring some Oreo cookies? Oh, darn it, So they stopped at the gas station and bought some. Well, and then the last family came in, and here comes the mom, and she's got two packages of Oreo double stuffed cookies. She's got a jug of milk, and she's got cups, and she's got napkins. And I guess the point of this Oreo cookie test is, who can I trust that's going to follow through when I ask them to do something? And the mom that brought all the stuff, I maybe can count on her to do, and maybe she'd be a good assistant den leader for me. And so, knowing who you can trust and what kind of skills they have is very helpful for you too. Now, we're sitting here, it's what, April 26th, I guess, and some of our Cub Scout programs are coming to the end of the school year. Do you have a succession plan in place for some of your key leaders? Do you know who the den leaders are going to be for the dens next year? Or if you're a Boy Scout troop, who is your Scoutmaster going to be continuing this fall? And if not, who's going to be taking over the reins? Who's going to be on the committee this next year? Those are all questions that you want to be thinking about right now, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to recruit a replacement with a parent that has already been involved in the program for a while. They're going to be much more inclined to say, yeah, I can be on the committee, or yes, I can take over this den, rather than putting all your eggs in one basket and waiting until the fall recruiting, and you have a new parent that walks in the door and, hey, we want you to be our den leader. Okay. Obviously, the comfort level is not going to be there for a parent that just walked in with their child to join Cub Scouts to say, yes, I'll take on a year-long obligation to be a den leader. Those people, you want to get involved in small projects first to let them build up their comfort level, and then slowly, as they become more comfortable, they will take on more tasks to help you. So if you haven't talked about a succession plan, on page 28 in the guide, it asks what are some of your key positions that you're thinking you're going to need to fill, and who are some of the prospects, and then take this time during the spring and the summer to talk to them and let them say yes, but give them a little bit of time to get comfortable with it before they have to start up with doing den meetings. And so just some tips for you, I guess, on recruiting. I can tell you that people still do volunteer. They volunteer all the time. And we're very blessed in our council. We have thousands and thousands of people that have said yes. And I guess I would ask you, if you think back to the time when you started scouting, did you raise your hand and volunteer, or did somebody ask you? And so we can't be afraid to ask people to help, because a lot of times they just aren't going to do that on their own. So finally, my contact information is on the screen here. So if you have any questions, or if you're not able, some of the people are on the phone and maybe don't have a way to download that handout. You can certainly send me an email at Darren Steindl at scouting.org, and that's DARIN Steindl, STEINDL at scouting.org. Or you can go onto the Northern Lights Council website and click on the contacts, and you'll find my contact information on there. Certainly, I can email you out the handout if you can't get that. Want to thank everybody for what you do in scouting. Without you, scouting just wouldn't work. And so, thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for taking 45 minutes out of your day to talk about webinars or program planning. And I'm looking on the screen here. I don't see any questions that were asked. So with that, I will sign off, and I hope that you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.